A 47-year-old man storms out of Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom in the middle of his case, showing shocking disrespect to one of America's most beloved judges. What happens next when his lawyer drags him back, teaches a lesson about respect, consequences, and redemption that you won't forget? This is the story of Danny Morrison, a man whose arrogance collides with true justice, and why Judge Caprio's response became legendary for everyone who witnessed it. If you believe respect should be earned and given, hit that like button now, and share in the comments a moment when someone's attitude completely changed your perception of them. What Danny does in this courtroom will make you realize why walking out on Judge Caprio was both the biggest mistake of his life and, paradoxically, the moment that might have saved it. This story will leave you appreciating the wisdom that comes with age and the power of second chances. Stay until the very end, because Judge Caprio's final words to Danny will give you chills and restore your faith in justice and humanity. It's a Friday afternoon, 3:30 p.m. at Providence Municipal Court. Judge Frank Caprio, now 77, is wrapping up a long week of cases. One final name remains on the docket: Daniel Morrison, age 47, facing charges of reckless driving and failing to appear for his original court date. Over decades on the bench, Judge Caprio has developed a near-uncanny ability to read people, to tell who's truly remorseful, who's trying to manipulate the system, and who simply doesn't understand the seriousness of their actions. The bailiff calls Danny's name. Through the courtroom door strides a man in an expensive suit, designer shoes, and a gold watch catching the light. Danny Morrison owns 3 thriving car dealerships in the Providence area. A self-made man who began selling used cars from a tiny lot 20 years ago and built an empire through sheer ambition, bold tactics, and an unshakable belief that money solves everything. Outside, his BMW sits in a no-parking zone. He assumed it would only take a few minutes. In the gallery, a dozen people wait for their own cases. An elderly woman clutches her purse nervously. 2 young men whisper about their parking tickets. The court stenographer glances up, immediately recognizing the type. Officer Martinez, who issued Danny's original ticket, sits in the back, curious to see how this will unfold. Danny approaches the bench with the swagger of someone accustomed to getting his way through money and intimidation. No bow, no respectful posture, just a man who believes the courtroom is beneath him. "Yeah, I'm here about the driving thing," he says casually. "Look, Judge, I'm busy. I employ 47 people and pay more taxes than most people make in a year. Can we just settle this with a fine so I can get back to business?" Judge Caprio looks up from his paperwork, his expression calm but piercing. In nearly 50 years on the bench, he's developed a particular distaste for arrogance cloaked in self-importance. "Mr. Morrison," he begins, his voice steady but deliberate, "you failed to appear for your original court date. Today, we address both your reckless driving and your failure to respect this court schedule. Do you understand the seriousness of this?" His posture straightens, and his words carry the weight of decades of experience, warning anyone who dares underestimate the law. This court operates on respect. Judge Frank Caprio begins, his voice calm but carrying the weight of decades on the bench. Respect for the law, respect for the process, and respect for everyone who appears before it. Your attitude suggests you believe your business success exempts you from the responsibilities every citizen must uphold. Danny Morrison laughs. Actually laughs, right in the courtroom. "Come on, Judge," he says, with a cocky grin. "You know how the world works. People like me keep this economy running. We create jobs, pay taxes. A little flexibility goes a long way." The courtroom falls completely silent. Even the court reporter pauses mid-keystroke. Judge Caprio removes his glasses. A gesture seasoned court observers know signals that something significant is about to happen. "Mr. Morrison," the judge says, his voice steady, deliberate, carrying decades of authority. "You seem to believe that financial success grants you the right to ignore basic respect in my courtroom." Danny responds with exaggerated exasperation, throwing his hands in the air. "Respect? Look, I've been paying people's salaries in this city for 15 years. Half the officers who wrote this ticket probably bought their cars from my lots. You want to lecture me about respect when I'm the one keeping this place afloat? Whispers ripple through the gallery. Court officers exchange uneasy glances. An elderly woman gasps audibly. Officer Martinez shakes his head in disbelief. The bailiff steps forward, sensing the tension escalating. Judge Caprio rises slowly, his 77-year-old frame radiating the dignity and authority of the office. Instantly, the entire courtroom goes silent. Even the whispers die down. His voice drops, calm yet commanding more attention than any shout could achieve. Sir, your wealth does not grant you immunity from courtesy. Your tax contributions do not buy you special treatment in this courtroom, and employing 47 people does not excuse your fundamental failure to understand that here, we are all equal under the law. Danny's face flushes red. Years of employees deferring to him, of money smoothing over every problem, have left him utterly unprepared for someone who cannot be bought or intimidated. Danny's voice rises, defensive and angry. That's rich, coming from a system that lets real criminals walk while harassing successful businessmen over a simple traffic violation. I don't have time for this philosophical lecture from someone who's never had to meet a payroll. The insult hangs in the air like a tangible force. Judge Caprio, who immigrated as a child, worked his way through law school, and dedicated his life to public service, absorbs it with visible restraint. Mr. Morrison, he says firmly, I am giving you one last opportunity to reconsider your approach and show this court the respect it deserves. Danny checks his watch, lets out an exaggerated sigh, and delivers the line that will define the moment and haunt him forever. You know what? I'm done with this. I've got real problems. The courtroom watches in stunned silence as Danny strides toward the exit. Judge Caprio's voice follows, calm but unmistakably authoritative. Mr. Morrison, if you leave this courtroom without being dismissed, you will be in contempt of court. Judge Caprio's voice is calm, but it carries the full weight of authority. Danny doesn't even turn around. He waves his hand dismissively over his shoulder. Add it to my tab, Your Honor, he says, emphasizing Your Honor in a mocking, disrespectful tone. Danny pushes through the courtroom doors and disappears into the hallway, leaving behind a stunned audience. Witnesses exchange wide-eyed glances. No one in Judge Caprio's decades on the bench has ever seen such blatant contempt combined with a fundamental misunderstanding of justice. For a long moment, Judge Caprio simply stands, absorbing the audacity before him. Then quietly he announces, Court will be in recess. Mr. Morrison's case will be rescheduled, and additional charges will be filed. 30 minutes later, Danny Morrison sits in his BMW outside the courthouse, scrolling through a car auction catalog and making phone calls, already dismissing the entire court experience as a waste of time. His phone rings. It's Robert Chun, his attorney of 8 years, calling from his office across town. Danny, I just got a call from the courthouse. Please tell me you didn't actually walk out on Judge Frank Caprio. Barely looking up, Danny shrugs. Bob, relax. It's just some old judge on a power trip. I've got bigger problems than a traffic ticket. Silence stretches across the line. When Robert speaks again, his voice is urgent, sharp, and unlike anything Danny has ever heard. Danny, you need to listen very carefully. Judge Frank Caprio isn't just some old judge. He's one of the most respected jurists in New England. What you just did, you could be facing serious jail time. Danny chuckles nervously. Jail time for a traffic ticket? Come on, Bob, you're overreacting. Robert's voice hardens, deadly serious now. Danny, you're not listening. You walked out of a courtroom in the middle of proceedings. That is criminal contempt of court. But that's not even the worst part. Judge Caprio has full discretion over your sentencing, and you just showed him the utmost disrespect. Danny finally sets down his auction catalog, a flicker of alarm crossing his face. What are you saying? I'm saying that instead of a fine in traffic school, you could be facing 6 months in jail, loss of your driver's license, and criminal charges that could jeopardize your business licenses. Danny, you may have just destroyed everything you've spent 15 years building. The words hit him like cold water. That can't be right. It was just a traffic case. Stop right there, Robert says, voice heavy with gravity. It stopped being just a traffic case the moment you walked out. And there's something else you need to know about Judge Caprio. Danny swallows hard, stomach twisting. What do you mean? Judge Frank Caprio is known for his compassion. He's famous for helping people, for understanding their circumstances, for giving second chances. Danny, he probably would have reduced your fine, maybe sent you to traffic school. Instead, you insulted a man who has dedicated his entire life to serving his community. Danny's face pales as the weight of what he's done begins to sink in. Robert Chen's response is immediate and uncompromising. We're going back to that courthouse today, he says, his tone leaving no room for debate. You're going to apologize, genuinely apologize, and hope that Judge Caprio's legendary compassion extends even to someone who insulted everything he stands for. Today is Friday afternoon, Danny. Judge Caprio stayed late to handle your case. The least you can do is get back there before he goes home for the weekend. Every hour that passes only makes this worse. An hour later, Robert paces outside the courthouse, anxiously waiting. Danny's BMW pulls up, this time legally parked, and something immediately catches Robert's eye. His client looks smaller somehow, less confident, the swagger completely gone. Are you ready for this? Robert asks. Danny nods, eyes downcast. What if he won't listen? Robert presses. Then I'll face the consequences of my actions, Danny admits. But Bob, Judge Caprio is known for giving people a chance to make things right. The real question is whether I'm ready to do it genuinely. At 4:45 p.m., Judge Frank Caprio sits in his chambers, reviewing Danny Morrison's file and preparing the contempt charges. A knock at the door interrupts him. Judge, Robert Chen is here with his client, Mr. Morrison. They're requesting to address the court. Caprio looks up, genuinely surprised. In his decades of experience, people who storm out of his courtroom rarely return the same day, seeking reconciliation. Tell Mr. Chen I'll see them in 5 minutes, he says. When court reconvenes, the atmosphere is transformed. Danny Morrison enters behind his attorney, and the change is immediate and striking. Gone is the expensive suit, replaced by simple slacks and a modest shirt. His posture is different, respectful, uncertain, humbled. Judge Caprio takes a seat, expression unreadable. The courtroom is nearly empty, except for a few officers and staff who stayed late, curious to witness this unprecedented moment. Mr. Morrison, Judge Caprio begins, his voice measured, calm, and authoritative. This is highly unusual. You left my courtroom without permission, demonstrating contempt for this court and the judicial process. Why have you returned? Danny rises. For the first time in the proceedings, his voice trembles slightly. Your Honor, I came back because I realized I made a terrible mistake. Not just walking out. That was inexcusable, but in how I conducted myself in your courtroom. Judge Caprio listened silently. Decades of experience reading people, now fully engaged in discerning whether this apology is genuine or calculated. My attorney explained to me who you are, what you've accomplished, and how you've served this community. Danny continues, pausing to find words that don't come easily to someone used to always being right. I came into your courtroom thinking I was more important than the process, more important than showing respect. I was wrong. I insulted you personally, and I insulted everything this courtroom represents. I have no excuse for my behavior. I can only tell you that I am ashamed and that I am here to accept whatever consequences you deem appropriate. Judge Caprio studies him for a long moment. In 4 decades on the bench, he has developed an almost supernatural ability to distinguish between true remorse and empty words. Mr. Morrison, he begins slowly. When you left here 2 hours ago, you demonstrated contempt, not just for me personally, but for the rule of law itself. Law itself. Judge Frank Caprio continues, his voice steady but filled with authority. You suggested that your wealth and business success entitled you to different treatment under the law. Danny nods, face flushed with embarrassment. Yes, Your Honor. I was completely wrong. I mocked the concept of equality under the law. I dismissed the importance of respect in a courtroom. I insulted your life's work and everything you stand for. Each word lands like a physical blow. Danny is beginning to grasp the full magnitude of his mistakes. Yes, Your Honor. I understand that now. Judge Caprio leans forward slightly, voice carrying genuine emotion for the first time. Mr. Morrison, tell me what changed in the last 2 hours? What brought you back here? Danny takes a deep breath. Your Honor, my attorney told me about your background. How you came to this country as an immigrant, worked construction to pay for law school, and have dedicated your life to serving others. I realized I've spent so much time building my business that I forgot the basics of human decency. He pauses, summoning courage. When I walked out of here, I thought I was important because I have money, because I employ people. But you've spent 40 years serving your community, treating everyone with dignity, regardless of their bank account. I've been successful in business, but today, I failed as a human being. Judge Caprio's expression softens almost imperceptibly. The breakthrough he's been waiting for. The moment when ego gives way to genuine understanding. Your Honor, I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I hope you'll give me a chance to prove I can be better than the man who walked out 2 hours ago. The judge removes his glasses, slowly cleaning them, a ritual recognized by those who know him as his way of processing something profound. The courtroom falls silent. Everyone present senses they are witnessing something rare and important. Mr. Morrison. Judge Caprio begins, his voice carrying the weight of 4 decades of judicial wisdom. You've given me something to think about this afternoon. When you left here 2 hours ago, I was ready to throw the book at you. Criminal contempt, maximum fines, jail time. Your disrespect was unlike anything I've experienced in my career. But you came back. That tells me something. It tells me that underneath that arrogance and entitlement, there's a man capable of recognizing his mistakes. Judge Caprio rises, and his presence seems to fill the courtroom. Let me tell you something about respect, Mr. Morrison. I've been on this bench for over 40 years. I've seen wealthy defendants and poor defendants. I've seen people with PhDs and people who can barely read. And you know what I've learned? A person's character has nothing to do with their bank account and everything to do with how they treat others. Danny nods, hanging on every word. You told me you employ 47 people. That's impressive. But those 47 people work for you because you pay them, not because you respect them. True leadership isn't about being the boss. It's about serving others. Judge Caprio steps down from behind his bench, moving closer to eye level with Danny. A rare gesture, emphasizing the weight of his lesson and the humanity behind it. With you, Danny. Judge Frank Caprio continues, his voice steady, carrying decades of wisdom. When I came to this country as a young man, I learned that America's greatness isn't measured by wealth or power. It lies in the promise that everyone, regardless of background, receives equal treatment under the law. You challenged that principle today. Danny swallows hard, eyes downcast. Yes, Your Honor. I was wrong. You were wrong, Mr. Morrison. Judge Caprio responds. But you were also teachable. You came back. You listened. You learned. And that gives me hope. Tears form in Danny's eyes, something he hasn't felt in years. Mr. Morrison. Judge Caprio continues, his voice gentle but firm. I'm going to do something I've never done before in a case like this. I'm going to give you a choice. Danny leans forward, tense. Choice 1 is the usual, pay the fines, attend traffic school, and move on. But choice two is about learning what service truly means. You will spend the next 6 months volunteering every Saturday at the Providence Community Kitchen, serving meals to people who can't afford them. You'll work alongside people who have little, yet give everything they have to help others. Danny's eyes widen. This is not what he expected. But that's not all, Mr. Morrison. Judge Caprio continues. You will also spend 4 hours every month in community court, observing how true justice works. You'll witness people who show respect, integrity, and dignity, despite having nothing, and learn the difference between genuine character and purchased privilege. The judge returns to his bench, but his words remain personal, direct. If you choose this path, you will report to me personally every month. You will submit reflections on what you've learned, and at the end of 6 months, if you've genuinely understood respect and service, I will reduce your charges to a simple traffic violation. Danny struggles to find words. Your Honor, Why would you give me this chance? Judge Caprio's gaze is unwavering. Because, Mr. Morrison, I believe in redemption. I believe people can change, can grow, can become better than their worst moments. You showed me your worst today. Now I want to see your best. Danny breaks